Hello everyone and welcome to Rollin'-ish. I'm Matt, and in this video we're looking at Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. With the recent release of the 2024 Player's Handbook, we've been taking a retrospective look back at the 2014 Player's Handbook, along with two supplements that came out shortly thereafter, Xanathar's Guide to Everything and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. If you haven't done so already, please take a look at our class playlist. There you're going to find the Intro to video for all the classes, including all features you get levels 1 through 20, in addition to the subclasses offered by the 2014 Player's Handbook and what you get with each of those. We also have been taking a look at Xanathar's Guide to Everything and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything to see the subclasses offered by those modules as like a retrospective look of what we were getting, so we can compare to what we are getting when we start reviewing the 2024 Player's Handbook. So if you're familiar with these already, great. If not, these are some options you can talk to your DM about incorporating into your game, regardless of which rule set you're using, because we can do that. Today, we're looking at Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, specifically the Wizard class, and the two subclasses that were offered to us in that book, the Bladesinging subclass and the Order of the Scribes. As far as the Bladesinging subclass goes, this is something that was originated by elves, and incorporates swordplay and dance, similar to how a bard would use music or the spoken word to infuse their magic. In combat, specific movements allow the Bladesinging wizard to channel magic into devastating attacks or a cunning defense. Those who observe this describe it as one of the most beautiful experiences they've seen, a glorious dance accompanied by a singing blade. So, like all wizards, perhaps you came across this in study. Maybe there was a family heirloom, some kind of journal that you have in your possession that talks about the wielding of this kind of magic. And maybe that led you to do it. Or perhaps you're a bookworm and you were in a library and found some old tome in the back of a shelf that was covered by other books. And upon looking through it, you find this art and how it describes what you can do and things like that. These are just some ideas and ways to craft this into your background. So take a look, because I think it is pretty cool to do this. Now, I've seen a Bladesinging wizard with a background where they were a performer at a circus, and they would do these elaborate moves with their sword as like a performance. That could be something you can do similarly. So let's talk about what you get. When you choose this subclass at second level, you get a feature called Training in War and Song. This is going to give you proficiency in light armor and one type of one-handed melee weapon of your choice. So maybe a hand axe instead of a sword. But for the purpose of the subclass, I think you might want to take a sword here. Maybe a scimitar, short sword, something like that, with the one-handed property. Now, this is pretty unique because wizards don't often get proficiency in any armor. So the fact that you can even wear light armor is a step up from what most wizards get. And your ability to use a sword allows you a melee option you otherwise probably wouldn't get, because most wizards only can use like daggers, quarterstaffs, and things like that. So the fact that you get armor and a sword allows you to defend yourself a little bit more readily in combat than any other type of wizard. Slight bump to your AC due to the leather armor, but you're probably still going to want to carry mage armor, because at the end of the day, you are a spellcaster with a little health pool. So being able to defend yourself is great, but you still don't want to run into the fray because you are not the barbarian or the fighter by any means. You're also going to gain the performance skill as a proficiency here, which is brilliant because as a DM, I would probably rely on this a little bit for your skill checks and certain things that you're trying to do, just to roleplay that as we play through our campaign or one shot or whatever it is that you're bringing this wizard to the table. Also at second level, you get the Blade Song feature, which is like the heart of this subclass. You can invoke elven magic called the Blade Song, provided you aren't wearing medium or heavy armor and you're not using a shield. So that light armor is okay, but that's about it. It graces you with supernatural speed, ability, and focus. You can use a bonus action to start a Blade Song, which lasts for a minute. It ends early if you're incapacitated, if you don medium or heavy armor or a shield, or if you use two hands to make a weapon attack. You can also dismiss the Blade Song at any time, no action required. Here's what it does when you start the Blade Song. You gain the following benefits. So not one, all. You gain a bonus to your AC equal to your intelligence modifier. Wizards, this should be your highest ability stat because all of your magic comes from your intelligence as well as your Blade Song features. So higher the intelligence, the better. Your walking speed increases by 10 feet. You have advantage on acrobatics checks, and you gain a bonus to any constitution saving throw you make to maintain your concentration on a spell. The bonus equals your intelligence modifier. So again, the higher that is, the higher your concentration check or your saving throw will be to maintain concentration on a spell. All those things come into play, so you get all those features right at second level. So that's pretty cool. You're a little faster, you're a little harder to hit with that AC bump, you're a little bit more dexterous, you can concentrate a little bit better. This is a great feature to have at second level so early on. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses of it when you finish a long rest. Got it. At 6th level, you get extra attack. You can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. This is mainly for melee fighters, but you can cast one of your cantrips in place of one of those attacks. So you can go weapon cantrip. If you're going to go spell, you could go spell weapon or spell cantrip. You can't cast more than one leveled spell at a turn. So remember that. At 10th level, you have Song of Defense. You can direct your magic to absorb damage while your Blade Song is active. So this is going to be an additional feature to the list of what you get in your Blade Song. Okay, so in addition to the AC, the speed, the acrobatics, the concentration, when you take damage, you can use your reaction to expend one spell slot and reduce that damage to you by an amount equal to 5 times the spell slot's level. So if you burn a second level spell, 5 times 2 is 10. I can reduce the damage I just took by 10 hit points worth if I expend a second level spell slot. So this is pretty cool. This is like your blade coming to your defense as a reaction. Regardless of where you're getting hit, it's going to want to defend for you. So maybe it's described as your blade moves your arm to block the blow, and it's a glancing blow, and you take less damage. Thank you, sword. That's how I see this when I read this feature. It's like the blade wants to do something. That being said, as a DM, I would be extremely tempted to give your sword sentience, only because I feel like it wants to defend you staunchly, as like a devoted like sidekick. Maybe that's not something you want. I wouldn't force that on you, but that would definitely be a conversation I would have with any player who wants a blade singing wizard. I would be having that conversation. What if your sword could talk to you? It would be like something I'd be into. Anyway, at 14th level, you get Song of Victory. You can add your intelligence modifier to the damage of your melee weapon attacks while the blade song is active. I love that. So that's in addition. So Song of Victory and Song of Defense add to your blade song features. Of course, Song of Defense is a reaction, but Song of Victory is allowing me to add my intelligence modifier. All the more reason for me to put weight into that. I want to get that to 20. You get ability score improvements at certain level intervals. The first one being at level 4. I'm going and making sure that my intelligence is as high as I could possibly get it, because some of these features are too good not to take. The fact that I could have my intelligence modifier added to the damage. I can use my intelligence modifier to boost my con saving throws and my concentration spells. And overall, my intelligence is going to help make my spell save DC and my spell attack bonus, so I want it high anyway. This is still, in my opinion, this is one of the best wizard subclasses, because it's still focusing on you being a wizard. The danger that comes along with your small health pool and your limited AC, the danger that comes from you as a foe in combat because of your spell prowess, but it allows you to do a few things with your sword or have your AC be a little bit higher to defend yourself a little bit more. So to me, it just opens up the door to the backstory, right? The features are all nice, but the backstory is like, well, what if I came from like a line of children? Maybe my dad had like 10 kids and I'm like number 9 or number 10. And the oldest, they're all generals and serve in the army and the guard, and they do all the important things that they're expected to do. Meanwhile, the runts of the litter are often left to do whatever they want because they're not as important to the family line as the others. So maybe I locked myself away in a room somewhere and studied books and became the intellectual. Like, there's so much to do in there, but it makes sense that I could wield a sword because of my family history. So there's a lot of versatility in this subclass, which is why I'm such a huge fan of the Blade Singing Wizard. Okay, let's talk about the Order of Scribes, because these are the nerds of the nerds. If the wizards are the bookie nerds, then the Order of Scribe wizards are the clicked nerds within the nerds. Okay? If that makes any sense. And I mean that as a compliment because I am a wizard main and I'm a nerd. I read all the things. So I'm speaking to, when I point the finger, these fingers are pointing right back at me. Okay? The Order of Scribes. So magic is of the book, right? That is the wizard definition. But these are the most bookish of all the wizards. They are the ones that are going to want to record and catalog magical discoveries along your adventuring journey, so wizardry itself can flourish. These are the ones that might take down notes of where you're going and make their own map if they have the cartography skill. I could see that happening. I could see one charting flora and fauna everywhere they go. This is a creature we saw. This is what it did. Right? This is the plant. The plant actually attacks, but it also has healing properties. Here's how it defends itself. Like, the more one understands, the more one could use that information in a magical way. And that's what the Order of the Scribes is trying to do, is just understand everything in the universe and its connection to the weave or wherever your magic is coming from. In addition, they magically awaken their spell books. This sounds more and more nerdy as I go on. So their spell book itself, while all wizards write their spells in it and study it, and they prepare their spells each day with it, the Order of the Scribe wizards could actually talk to their spell books because of their awakened state. And so their spell book becomes a trusted companion. Yes, I'm describing a wizard talking to its book like it's a person. And I realize how crazy and nerdy that sounds, but that's what they do. All wizards study books, but the wizardy scribe talks to theirs. So before I make this sound any crazier, I swear it's cool, and it's one of the highest ranked wizard subclasses in my opinion as a wizard main. So hopefully that means something. Maybe it doesn't. Wizardly Quill. This is the first feature you get at 2nd level. Here's what it does. As a bonus action, you can magically create a tiny quill in your free hand. The magic quill has the following properties. It doesn't require ink. As you write with it, it produces ink in a color of your choice on the writing surface. Love it. Kind of reminds me of those pens. See, I'm an 80s kid, but there was these pens back in the day that had little buttons, and as you clicked on the buttons, you could change which ink would come out of the pen. It reminds me of that. The time you must spend to copy a spell into your spellbook equals 2 minutes per spell level if you use the quill for the transcription. Now, this is really cool because this actually takes, I think, 2 hours per spell level for a normal wizard. So the fact that you would spend some downtime copying the spell, and it's not just the copying, right? Like, in a roleplay sense, it's copying, it's the collection of the components, it's the practice with the components, it's the practice of the incantation and the hand gestures and everything that goes along with it. It's not just copying. But in that process, it takes a long time. So the fact that your quill can cut that down to 2 minutes per spell level for you to copy is insanely fast and safe. It is an efficient use of your time. So instead of copying down spells in your downtime, you could take a look out and participate in what the rest of the party is doing and talking about instead of being the bookworm. Although I spent minutes describing what a bookworm this wizard is, so maybe you do nothing with that information. You can erase anything you write with the quill if you wave the feather over the text as a bonus action, provided the text is within 5 feet of you. So you kind of just use your feather from the quill to tickle the words and they go away. This quill disappears if you create another one or if you die. So if you lose one, create another one. You also get your awakened spellbook. Using prepared inks and ancient incantations passed down by your wizardy order, you have awakened arcane sentience within your spellbook. See, now, again, as a DM, I would turn this book into a character, give it a personality, and have it actually talk back to you in only a way that you can hear for some fun roleplay moments. Maybe antagonize you in combat. Do it. Cast Fireball. You know, like, sorry, that's the rabbit hole I could take us down. But anyway, when you're holding this book, it grants the following benefits. You could use this book as a spellcasting focus for your wizarding spells, naturally. When you cast a wizard spell with a spell slot, you could temporarily replace its damage type with a type that appears in another spell in your spellbook, which magically alters the spell's formula for casting only. The latter spell must be of the same level as the spell slot you expended. So let's just say you wanted to cast Acid Splash and replace the acid with ice. You could do that and do cold damage instead. Because I think Ray of Frost is a cantrip, And so if you have that prepared, it's like borrowing the frost, putting it on acid splash, and there you go. Which I think is very cool considering you as a wizard, in Order of the Scribe wizard, may have knowledge of what this animal or creature is and perhaps some of its resistance or immunities. You, Order of Scribe wizard, I would probably allow a nature check with advantage to find those things because you probably would, if anybody in the party, know what it is. And if you're successful, I would remind you of those resistances and immunities to make this feature even more valuable because you're like, guys, it doesn't like acid, but because I have acid splash prepared, I'm going to change it. And now it's thunder, or now it's frost, whatever I can borrow from, if that makes any sense. So it's like borrowing the damage from one spell in your spell book to replace it with the spell you're actually casting. And you're like, well, why don't I just cast that other spell? Maybe because the damage dice is different. Maybe because the area of effect is different. You can include more targets this way. There could be a multitude of reasons why, but that is a great benefit. And to get it at second level is pretty great. Okay. When you cast a wizard spell as a ritual, you can use this spell's normal casting time rather than adding 10 minutes to it. Once you use this benefit, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So there are spells available to the wizard class that might have the ritual tag. And as such, casting them as a ritual does not expend a spell slot, but you have to abide by the casting time. So if it says 10 minutes, it takes 10 minutes for you to cast that spell. What this is doing is saying, when you cast a wizard spell as a ritual, you can use the spell's normal casting time rather than adding 10 minutes to it. So if it's not a ritual and you could do it in a minute, burning a spell slot, this is telling you, no, do it as a ritual, but take the minute, not the 10 minutes. You can still save your spell slot. So this is just a way of speeding up ritual spells to make them normal, which is pretty cool considering what ritual spells can do. So if you're unfamiliar, take a look at your spells, either on D&D Beyond or maybe in your handbook, and look at the ones that you want or the ones that you have access to. And if they've got like a small capital R next to it, it's a ritual. And in the definition of the spell, it'll say ritual and what that spell can do. Because you'll be able to cast it at a normal time without expending a spell slot. You could do it once, right? It says you could do it one time. After that, you have to take the cost as normal. Either a ritual at 10 minutes or burning a spell slot to do the ritual spell faster. The first time, because of this feature, is like a freebie. And you can do that once per long rest. Okay. If necessary, you can replace the book over the course of short rest by using your wizardly quill to write arcane sigils in a blank book or magic spell book to which you're attuned. At the end of the rest, your spellbook's consciousness is summoned into the new book, which the consciousness transformed into your spellbook along with its spells. If the previous book still existed somewhere, all the spells vanish from its pages. I love that too, and I love that you get it at second level, because at lower levels, I have been known to have bad guys attack a wizard, grapple them to steal their spellbook so that they can't use spells. And if that happens and my bad guys get away, this wizard could replace that rather easily. Otherwise, it is a pain in the butt, which is an evil thing to do as a DM, but it is a true-to-life thing. If you're a bad guy and there's a wizard over there casting something from a book, what, you want to take the book out of his hands, just like you want to disarm the fighter and knock the sword out of their hand? That's just me. It's mean. Okay. 6th level, you get Manifest Mind. You conjure forth the mind of your awakened spellbook. As a bonus action, while the book is on your person, you can cause the mind to manifest as a tiny spectral object, hovering in an unoccupied space of your choice within 60 feet of you. The spectral mind is tangible and doesn't occupy its space, and it sheds dim light in a 10-foot radius. It looks like a ghostly tome, a cascade of texts, or a scholar from the past. So I picture these visions that, Luke has in Star Wars of Force ghosts. While manifested, the spectral mind can hear and see, and it has dark vision out to 60 feet. The mind can telepathically share with you what it sees and hears, no action required. Have it go sneak up on stuff. Whenever you cast a wizard spell on your turn, you can cast it as if you were in the spectral mind space instead of your own, using its senses. All right, so you're hiding behind a rock or a tree, and you're focusing. And you're actually seeing and hearing out of the spectral mind's space. And you can stay hidden and safe and cast spells from it over there, from wherever it is. Oh, I love that so much. Sometimes you got to talk through these things to get it to click. You could do so a number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. As a bonus action, you can cause the Spectral Mind to hover up to 30 feet in an occupied space that you or it can see. It can pass through creatures, but not objects. So as long as you keep an eye on it, you can bonus action move. The Spectral Mind stops manifesting if it is ever more than 300 feet away from you, if someone casts Dispel Magic on it, if the Awakened Spellbook is destroyed, if you die, or if you dismiss the Spectral Mind as a bonus action. Once you conjure the mind, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend a spell slot of any level to conjure it again. Love that. Love that so much, Manifest Mind. It's going to keep you safe, wizard. It's like, I'm an analogy, guys. It helps me think. If you know Game of Thrones, in the books, Jon Snow, along with Arya, had the ability to warg. But if you only watch the show, when Jon Snow was with the free folk out beyond the wall, there was one of those guys with the little goatee. He would roll his eyes back and they would become white, and he warged into the hawk that would fly around and eventually attack Jon Snow with it. That's kind of like what this is. You're hidden somewhere, concealed, right? And you're focusing on being in the Spectral Mind and using its space, casting spells from its location. As long as you can see where it's going, you can use your bonus action to get it to move and get it to do things for you. Love that. I think that is a great feature. At 10th level, you get Master Scrivener. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can create one magic scroll by touching your wizardly quill to a blank piece of paper or parchment and causing one spell from your awakened spellbook to be copied onto the scroll. Spellbook must be within 5 feet of you when you make the scroll. The chosen spell must be of 1st or 2nd level and must have a casting time of 1 action. Once in the scroll, the spell's power is enhanced, counting as 1 level higher than normal. You can cast the spell from the scroll by reading it as an action. The scroll is unintelligible to anyone else, and the spell vanishes from the scroll when you cast it or when you finish your next long rest. You are also adept at crafting spell scrolls, which are described in the treasure chapter of the Dungeon Master's Guide. The golden time you must spend to make such a scroll are halved if you use your wizardly quill. Those can come in handy because those can be sold, right? Like in magic shops, in locations in our homebrew campaign, you could buy low-level spell scrolls that only really require a DC Arcana check to read it. Usually it's 10. If you're a spellcaster already, I might let you roll that with advantage. But that's how I deal with it. But those can be sold. They're worth money. So you could craft some of those and go into a magic shop and trade them for others. Or, hey, I got some of these. I'll give them to you to sell. Give me a break on what I'm buying and make it part of the barter. You could do that. But I love that you could take a 1st or 2nd level spell and upcast it 1 level up by using it. Because every day I might write one of these scrolls and tuck them away. When you cast it, vanishes when you cast it or when you finish your next long rest. So you can't stockpile these. They're going to be gone as soon as you fall asleep. But if you're going into a known combat and you've got some pretty nifty spells at your disposal and you want to hand them off to the non-spellcasters as a, in case of emergency, break glass, use this spell scroll, I think that's pretty sweet. Especially if you learn something like Scorching Ray has 3 different rays, or Magic Missile, being able to upcast, you write it as a 2nd level Magic Missile so they can cast it at 3rd when they read the scroll. There's ways that you can really do this and make it worth your while, is what I'm saying. And I really like that feature a lot. Lastly, we have one with the word. It's a 14th level feature. Your connection to your awakened spellbook has become so profound that your soul has become entwined with it. While the book is on your person, you have advantage on Arcana checks, as the spellbook helps you remember magical lore. I love that. See, this is why you need to give things sentience. Moreover, if you take damage while your spellbook's mind is manifested, you can prevent all of that damage to you by using your reaction to dismiss the spectral mind, using its magic to save yourself. Then roll 3d6. The spellbook temporarily loses spells of your choice that have a combined spell level equal to that roll or higher. For example, if the roll's total is 9, spells vanish from the book that have a combined level of at least 9, which could mean 1 9th level spell, yikes, 3 3rd level spells, or some other combination that totals 9. If there aren't enough spells in the book to cover this cost, you drop to 0 hit points. There's the other side. It's balanced, friends. Until you finish 1d6 long rests, you are incapable of casting the lost spells. even if you find them on a scroll or in another spellbook. After you finish the required number of rests, the spells return and reappear in the spellbook. Once you use this reaction, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. In case of emergency break glass, that is an emergency feature. I might not take the risk of using that unless it's A, going to save me or someone in my party, B, cause some kind of catastrophic advantage in combat. Like, we've got bad guy on the ropes. We need me standing up. I take the damage. I use this to save myself. I'm sacrificing my spellbook to win. I love it so much. I mean, as a wizard, you're probably going to have enough spells in your spellbook to total the roll of your 3d6. But what if you roll really high? Like, let's see. I'm going to do this twice, just to see, for example's sake, what we get. A 4, a 2, and a 1. That's 7. So I could drop a 7th level spell, and that's my... I no longer have that spell for a week. This is a little worse. This is 9. 4, 3, and 2. Okay, so, 3, 6, 9. That's the average for 3d6. Still, it's worth it. I still think it's worth it. I don't think you're not going to have enough, unless you roll really high, to need to drop to 0. But even still, it's going to take spells out of your spellbook for 1d6 long rests. How many is that? 4. Yeah, it's got to be a really good reason for me to use this. But that's the point of it. Like, versatility, I'm all in the camp of versatility in being able to use this or that. But every now and then, to give a player a bomb, I think it's worth it. To negate all the damage. If my spellbook's mind is manifested, and I get hit with a breath weapon, or a disintegrating ray from a beholder, which would normally be enough damage to wipe out a wizard, for me to negate all the damage to stay on and help in some way might be worth the sacrifice. But yeah, those are the kind of moments that are made for, like, dramatic, oh my god kind of moments at the table. I live for those. So one with the word, that might be like my favorite feature out of any wizard subclass, just because I see this being used in certain moments at the table, and those are the things that you always remember. So love it. Balanced. Well done. Well done, Tasha's. Tasha's with wizard came in strong. Bladesinging and Order of the Scribes. I love them both. I'm excited to dive into what we're being offered in the 2024 Player's Handbook to see if these are options. I have it. It's right here on my desk. But I refuse to crack it open until we finish this series, which we just did. So coming soon, we're going to dive into the classes for your 2024 Player's Handbook and the subclasses that are within. We're also going to be addressing some of the other changes to the Player's Handbooks. So, for example, Counterspell is a spell that appears in both books, but written differently. 2024 Player's Handbook has it one way. 2014 Player's Handbook has it another way. And we're going to compare them. So we're going to find things like that in the Player's Handbook and compare them and just talk about them and hopefully get some of your reactions too in the comments. Until then, have fun building your wizards, and we'll see you at the table.